Welcome to the Gain Momentum podcast, focusing on timeless lessons from senior leaders in hospitality, travel, technology, and food service. I'm joined today by Dan Assor. He's the general manager of NoVacancy London. And this to me is a special episode because we're talking to somebody who is launching and supervising and managing a trade show, a convention. And we all know that in hospitality, trade shows and conventions they're big business. They're important for us to attend. But it's great to hear from your perspective, Dan, about where the world of trade shows is going, what value they bring to the attendees, to exhibitors as well, and how to launch a trade show in a market where there's already a trade show for 50 out of 52 weeks of the year. So, Dan, to start, give us the elevator pitch for NoVacancy London, when the conversation started, when it is, what you hope to achieve, types of exhibitions, sessions, etc.
Sure. Thank you. Firstly, thanks for inviting me on, Adam. Appreciate the opportunity. No Vacancy Hotel and Accommodation Industry Expo London, to give it its full name. Takes place 25th, 26th of February, 2026. I know this episode, I think, will be going out in early 26, so in a month's time, at Excel London. It's a business-focused event for hotel and accommodation owners and operators, predominantly across the UK, but we will expect attendees from outside the UK as well. Audience includes general managers, senior leaders across operations, revenue, sales, marketing, IT, digital, people and culture, sustainability, F&B, and they represent in the main independent hotels and branded groups, also luxury resorts, and then a smattering of sort of holiday parks, hostels, and also hospitality management companies. And essentially, visitors come, as you mentioned, to see suppliers on the Expo floor, which will feature a wide range of solution providers. And then that works alongside a conference program. And in London, we have 9 tracks. And it's designed to help operators enhance guest experience, drive revenue, improve operational efficiency. So that is probably more than an elevator pitch. Maybe if you're going up to the 33rd floor of a building.
Well, I mean, but it's important to cover all those because
Sure.
you're covering a lot of ground and you're really incubating that cross-pollination of different parts of the industry. So that way people can be inspired, they can learn, and then you have the 9 tracks there for people to have educational sessions and to really drill down to specific topics they want to learn about. One question therein, London is London. It's its own world. But why London and not another European hub?
Sure. So when we were thinking about where else we might take the NoVacancy brand, which obviously, as your listeners and yourself will know, or might not know, it originated in Sydney, Australia. Ultimately, we felt it was a natural home. It's where global brands and independents sit side by side. And also some of it's to do with the timing. February is, I guess, after peak trading period of the holiday season, sort of Christmas, means people have the headspace to sort of step back, plan, make decisions. So it's a combination of the dateline compared to other shows that were going on. And also it's a trade show, right? So we're going after a significant volume of attendees. And given, as I said, London's focus and the fact it's a sort of epicenter of hospitality for Europe in many regards, we felt that it was the best place to do it. And also, it is very much a UK focused event. So London, not to be disparaging to other cities in the UK, we felt would have the biggest draw. So those are the reasons, really.
Those are very, very valid and very important reasons. Okay, so let's take a step back now. NoVacancy started off in Australia. That was 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, I think 2017, 2018, it was owned by National Media.
Yeah.
Another trade show company out of Australia.
Okay. And then No Vacancy Asia was the next one over in Bangkok. And when did that start?
So that launched literally in November 25, so just a few months
Wow.
ago. So the history of No Vacancy as a brand, as a business, as I said, it launched under the ownership of National Media. They're a significant trade show organizer in APAC. And Terrapin, who own No Vacancy now and have been going for 30 years in the conference and exhibition space, purchased No Vacancy in Australia in March 2024 off National Media, with a view to not only growing it in Sydney and Australia, but also taking it elsewhere. And the first port of call was Bangkok just a few months ago in November, and now next month in February in London.
Right. So as the manager of the, I guess, the London arm of No Vacancy,
Yeah,
when did you have the first conversation
sure.
about setting this trade show up?
So typically, we work in the trade show industry. I think most people appreciate this in sort of 15-month cycles. So even with an established event, you'll be planning before the next edition's happened, 3 months before, putting the business plan together. And this was really no exception. So I was having conversations with the CEO, Greg Hitchin, CEO of Terrapin, even before I joined the business. I've known Greg for a while through my own industry podcast. And he was telling me this is sort of the summer of 24 that, they just bought their vacancy in Sydney, looking to take it different places, was interested in getting someone on board with my experience of launches. So those conversations with Terrapin started about 18 months before what would be the launch date in February 26. And then really we get into the weeds of the business planning, as I said, about 15 months before, looking at the market strategy, the types of supplies, conference, the speakers, the positioning really of the event. And also speaking to the likes of Excel in terms of the date line, what's available. I mean, if we're honest as organisers and you ask me, why London and why venue, sometimes it's down to what's available as well, if we're frank. There's only so many destinations that you can put trade shows of a certain size in, even like a major country, like the UK. You've got Excel in London, you've got Birmingham NEC, you've got Olympia in London, and then you've got other smaller event spaces. So, but yeah, the planning really starts 15 to 18 months out for a new launch event.
Wow. And how do you do promotions then? Because we are launching a new product. It takes a lot of convincing to get hoteliers out of their daily grind to come there.
Yeah,
And of course, you got to sign on vendors, and they'll want to see an ROI or some sort of
yeah.
calculate. How do you promote this to get exhibitors and then also get attendees?
So I'll tell you what I did exactly. So, and honestly, I've worked in many different industry sectors, but I didn't have a network in hospitality, right? So what did I do to start off with? We all know at least one or two people in most business sectors. So I found one or two individuals, told them what we're doing. This is working what we call, I guess, buy side in the UK, so hoteliers specifically. Had a conversation with them. They introduced me to some others, and the first thing I did was to build a steering committee of the great and the good. I think we had like 10 individuals within a month. So what's this, 14 months out, who were going to help me shape the conference program to start off with, right? So what are the challenges, the opportunities that they're finding in their day to day? So these people were general managers of hotels, revenue directors, sales, marketing professionals. I was trying to build a broad church of different accommodation types. So really, really building the network. Why did they get involved? Um, because they could also see a lot of them knew No Vacancy from Sydney, even though they were in the UK. Yep, some of it I was, whether I should have been surprised, I was a little bit surprised. They're like, "Yeah, we've been to that," or we've heard of No Vacancy in Sydney. So that sort of did the job for me to a little bit. It wasn't just me as Dan Assor coming to them with an idea to launch an event. We had the heritage of Terrapin, so I could show them what we'd done with other events. Let's take the World Aviation Festival, which is now in Singapore, in the US, and in Lisbon. Solar and Storage Live, which is a series of events which now takes place in 16 different territories. And so that all built up the credibility. So it allowed me to have conversations with individuals and said, actually, okay, so these guys are serious. Um, and and then similarly, when we started to approach suppliers, you can imagine that I went first to companies that had exhibited and sponsored No Vacancy Sydney. So companies that were global, predominantly in the technology space, hospitality tech. You'll know lots of them, Adam. You know, Muse, Agilicis, SiteMinder, Room Price Genie, and so on. They love No Vacancy. And honestly, they were very excited that we can be bringing it to the UK. And so those conversations started, obviously after we had to put the website out, build some material, probably about in February 25, so about 12 months from the show. And as I said, at this point, I'd built a steering committee so I could show them that where the direction of travel was going. We obviously had a floor plan, prospectus. And so you start to build a network. And then obviously we build out the other profiles and categories of businesses from there. And I'm pleased to say that, we're sitting here with 70 sponsors and exhibitors. Plus our startup zone, which I'll talk about in a minute, which I think is a great differentiator between us and other trade shows in the market. And coming to the visitors, so getting other hotelier and other accommodation professionals to the event. Really three ways. So we build our own databases. We're laser focused on who we want to go after. There are obviously tools that allow you to do that. Personally, I set about early on building partnerships. So with the likes of the trade associations in hospitality, so UK Hospitality, HOSPA, Institute of Hospitality, lots of the media organisations, UK Spa Association, so AA Media, Gain Advisors, who are a partner of the event. And again, that builds credibility when you're speaking to prospective suppliers and also visitors as well, because they know and recognise, the names, the logos that they see on the website, and it's social proof, right? We all buy from word of mouth, and so our visitor campaign is built internally, and then through the partners, they help me to promote it, the exhibitors themselves, and the noise starts building, and then eventually people are approaching you because they see the excitement.
Yeah. So um, it's building a network, it's conversations. And I want to
Sure,
go over to a personal side of things is when we're talking about building a network and networks are built, one, conversations take time.
sure.
Therefore, how do you manage your time to move from those initial conversations with vendors, with exhibitors, with prospective big partners or attendees through to closing business and
Yeah.
then getting that social proof?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think in the first few months, I was probably having, just thinking about it now, 30, 40 conversations, like Teams calls like this, on a weekly basis. I'm a great believer, especially when you're launching, and I tell my team this, say yes to most things in year one, right? Because you just don't know where it leads.
Yeah.
It's easy to think, oh, this inquiry or this individual might not be able to do something, and sometimes you can't. But actually, what I found, my experience of the ones that you think aren't going to lead anywhere or might not lead anywhere actually end up leading somewhere. The one thing that I did, and I've always done, is get out, go to all the events. Fun enough, I've kept every lanyard from every event I've been to in the last 12 months. I will get to a point after the show doing a LinkedIn post of all of them, but there's probably 150. And international, we were speaking off camera. I went to High Tech for the first time in Indianapolis. I went to ITB Berlin. I went to other shows in the market, like the Independent Hotel Show, conferences. Because personally, that's where you build the connection. It might start on LinkedIn, it might start over email. And what I found in the hospitality community, both vendor and operator side, is, and maybe it's because from an operator side, they're used to serving customers, but they're all really friendly, right? Everyone, I think, is really excited about another opportunity to connect with the wider ecosystem, suppliers, to generate more business, new business, have existing conversations. So yeah, it's getting out and about, and finding out, in year one what works. We're reassessing when we're planning for year two. What are the partnerships that we felt that were mutually beneficial, which for whatever reason weren't. But they're few and far between, if I'm honest. But yeah, look, it's not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted. Personally, I like launching new things. It's just what I like. Get off. I just quite like doing it. Um, I know what I like and what I don't like, having got to, the ripe old age of 52. Um, so yeah, it's just making time to speak to as many people as possible. And also I
Yeah.
just building a great team. It's not just me.
Yeah.
I've got a great conference manager in Bobby Nunez. I've got a great operations manager in Eloise Rowland. I've got another business development manager in Thomas Caulfield, marketing manager Rob Arenberg. So, and we're supported by the wider Terrapin ecosystem, right? Which allows me to make time for those conversations. So maybe I don't have to worry about certain bits and pieces because got this engine in the background.
Yeah, you talk about engine and help having support from Terrapin, and
Sure.
draw that back to the point about that all those lanyards that you've kept from all those
Yeah.
events. The one thing therein is these events cost money.
Yeah.
Um, Badges, attendance fees, and then transport, airlines, hotels. How do you justify budget for uh,
Sure.
getting approval to go to all these things? Unless it's you're remortgaging your house to do this, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. Listen, coming back to the planning, we sit down and we say, right, specifically in year one, or for the first couple of years, as I said, we're going to have to say yes to most things, right? I'm going to have to go to events where maybe in year two and three, I'd decide that it's not the best use of time and money because it didn't get the ROI, and the ROI for me is building contacts. And that's fine. And so we probably would put a disproportionate amount in the first couple of years assigned to travel and entrance fees. As I said, they're not cheap. But that's what it takes coming back to launch a trade show like this. The ultimately maybe years, you've got to give it 3 years, right? And hopefully by year three, you've got to a scale where the profit and the margins are significant enough to justify the effort that you've put in. But year one and two, it's not about making a quick buck. And this is what I tell suppliers: you're in it for the long run. If someone is going into a venue like Excel, putting on this type of show, they're putting a lot of money and investment into it, and you're only going to do that if you are committed for you know 3 to 5 years as a minimum.
Yeah, well, I mean, Excel itself is that's where WTM is, World Travel
Sure.
Market. So,
Yeah.
it has a history of being a hub for hospitality connections. Uh, but yeah, what I'm wondering therein is, you're looking at these connections as a KPI right now. How do you scale once you reach that 3-year term where now your KPIs are shifting to something that are more ROI focused and maybe others, and then, I guess expanding within the space that Excel can offer you, or expanding the
Sure.
conference tracks? How do you grow?
Yeah. Well, I mean, from a supplier perspective, we identify a number of profiles, right? So, for example, you've got technology, software and systems, you've got furniture, fixture, equipment, you've got operating suppliers and equipment, you've got consultancy. So, we have like 6 buckets from a supplier perspective. And then the idea would be to grow those out over time. And once you get to a certain level of revenue, um, you benefit from the economies of scale, right? Because you've already hired out the hall. And so then, the extras, the booths you're putting in and sponsorship, essentially is all profit. But it takes a while to get to that point. You have to work with the venues with Excel. They're very good. They know us. And this is another benefit of doing it with a company like Terrapin or any other established organizer, that in the first couple of years, Excel would traditionally and other venues work with you as a partner. It's not to say there's no cost, but they will help you sort of build that platform. because it's in their interest for you to then, over the next 2 to 3 years, take a bigger space. We're taking 3 halls in Excel in year one, about 6,000 square meters. We'll probably use about 3/4 of it. But if I'm in Excel's shoes, they see Terrapin putting in a new event and they know what we've done with previous events. So they know that could turn into 12,000 square meters in 3 to 4 years' time. So they're willing to, help you out the first year or two. Um, so yeah, it's getting to that point where you've got economies of scale. Um, and there's no shortage of, from a visitor perspective, there's no shortage of leaders, buyers in this market, and not just within the hotel space, but in the wider accommodation ecosystem. So we believe that we will build the de facto event for the hospitality community in the UK.
Well, I mean, it's the right time of year in the UK as well,
Sure.
and in Europe because you have everyone wants to start the year strong, and I've always personally, it's always baffled me why so many events are in Q4 when people are trying to budget and close out things instead of front loading it in Q1 when hoteliers actually have a break after the holiday season to come to these things and they want to plan.
Yeah, I think I can't speak for everyone else, but my experience might suggest that from a sales cycle perspective, selling into suppliers, you've got the whole runway of the whole year, right? When you straddle 2 calendar years, it can sometimes be a bit tricky. Because
Yeah.
if you could imagine you're speaking to someone in March about an event next February, just psychologically, it's a bit more difficult, especially with those companies that don't naturally work to fix budget cycles. And actually, we're finding that more and more now. So perhaps that's one of those things because you sort of knock out a month between mid-December and early February as well, like Christmas. Not much is happening. Um, but if you get it right, it does create an opportunities because, as you quite rightly said, there aren't other or that many other events, and you've created a good gap between the ones that have taken place in Q3, Q4.
Well, that many other because the following week is ITB. So that's the show of shows.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, different from a visitor perspective as to who goes and where it is. Obviously, you wouldn't want to cross over with it, especially from a hotel tech perspective. Um, and honestly, I thought maybe that might be a challenge because we're only a week before, but it hasn't proven to be because I think people have got an appetite to, especially for a UK focused event. And I'm pleased to say that, lots of companies that go to ITB have also come to NoVacancy London.
Yeah, it's great strategy and design on that front. To look at the actual content, and this is where sort of an omnibus show where you're trying to touch on everything can really come in to an advantage because there's something for everyone to find there. And I want to start small here by looking at sustainability because this is increasingly of demand. People are looking for sustainability education and also suppliers and people to solve specific fixes. And there hasn't really been so much of a focus on that as a trade show versus technology, real estate investment,
Yeah.
travel, et cetera. So, can you talk about how you're helping bring that specifically to the forefront?
Sure. Just to roll back slightly, I mentioned there are 9 tracks, and we think very carefully about what those tracks could be. So, most of them are topic based, but we also have a track specifically focused on small hoteliers as well, because they might face, well, they do face maybe slightly different challenges to some of the chain brands. So it can be tricky when you're trying to, appeal to lots of different audiences. You have to try and find some commonalities. So coming back to sustainability, also we want it to be very grounded in reality. I think as a trade show, we want people to be able to attend and then take back the tips, the tricks, the insights into their day-to-day role. And ultimately, hotels are dealing with other accommodation outlets, dealing with rising costs, operational pressure. So the focus on actions, as I said, is deliver the actions that deliver sort of genuine impact and commercial value. And I've just got a few examples. So we've got Jeremy Slater from Bob W. who's talking about what he calls shoestring sustainability, which is all about the high impact changes that fast growing hotel and short term rental businesses can make, specifically without huge capital investment. Um, One of our suppliers, Zenio, is showing how smart room tech and intelligent energy control can deliver, I guess, measurable sustainability gains. Um, and we also try to we are moving beyond new builds from a content perspective. So we've got John Humphreys from Mainland Design, and he's showing some lessons from upgrading existing buildings. And also, we're talking about circular design. And we've got Josh Renouf from Lamington Group talking about that and shaping the future of home sales on the journey to net zero. So it's a wide range. We've also got a panel which includes reps from Radisson Hotel Group, and they're looking at what sustainability means in practice inside hotel businesses today. I said the key thread across all that, as I said, is really practicality, and the sort of honest opinions and takeaways that people can apply day to day.
And how does that principle of practicality in today's world apply to the other 8 tracks that you have?
Yeah, very similar. If I take the people and culture track, which even though like the track will say people and culture, you think, well, okay, well, is it just for heads of people and culture? But actually, it's not. GMs have obviously heavily invested in what's happening within their resource within the hotels. So I think it's similar across the piece. Technology. We've got lots of discussions around the use of agentic AI, how that's going to disrupt people's travel plans, how they're searching and booking, direct bookings as well. Again, how that's going to affect OTAs and the need for more personalization, and can AI give us that? So it really is about practical sessions and insights across all of the tracks. And the reason why we built this steering committee is because every 6 weeks we're going back to them and saying, right, what about this talk, opportunity for this speaker, and so on and so forth. So we're testing it all the time with that committee, because they're the people that and their peers are going to be turning up and obviously listening to these sessions.
So testing then gets to the word feedback. So
Sure.
February 27th, you're packing up and closing things down.
Yeah,
What KPIs are you going to look at in retrospect to show that this show was a success and guide next year or 2027?
sure. Yeah, it's a good question. Look, I mean, the stark reality is commercially, this is a free to attend event, right? So um, these events live or die on how well our suppliers get on. But obviously, they only get on if we bring the right people to the room from a buyer perspective, and they enjoy it as well. So the rebook is important. So trade show and exhibition organisers will talk about the rebook, and we'll have a specific number in mind as to what we want to achieve over a period of time. So, X amount of money in the room, X amount of suppliers. We take their feedback, anecdotal, but ultimately it's about, are they going to sign on the dotted line for 2027? So that's definitely a big KPI and metric of success. We can come off site and say that went brilliantly. If no one rebooks, then then it's not so brilliant. So that's definitely one of them. We do, as a business, have something called a net promoter score, and most trade show organizers would do that. So we send out a survey, which we ask people to complete, I think within 5 days. It's got 4 simple questions about how they enjoyed it and the conference and so on and so forth. The score out of 10. So we have a net promoter score that goes to exhibitors, goes to speakers, and it goes to visitors. And then there's a combined score. So obviously anything plus is a positive, but as an event director, honestly, whilst I want to hear the positive feedback, I really like to hear the negative feedback, or shall I say, the constructive criticism. because that's how we learn. And the good thing is, not that we might always like to hear it, we know that people that tend to fill out surveys are the ones that have got something to say about their experience. So, but that's good. You know, you might take a person to start off with, but once you become less emotive over the years, you realise they're only trying to help. So yeah, and it's I personally will be speaking to every vendor. I'll be speaking to our speakers afterwards. You know, we've got over 100 speakers at the event, and getting their views, you know, as to what they think we can improve upon. Because it's going to be lots. It's the first year. It doesn't matter that we run it in Sydney. Um, but I think people are forgiving, and if they see that there's the right direction of travel, they're happy to stay with you on the journey. Right? It's not just about year one. I mean, ultimately, we're the custodians of the event. The event is for the community. They would decide whether they want it, and they would decide whether we're doing it well enough. So that's the truth of the matter.
Well, I mean, I love the truth of it, that it's all about that rebooking ratio, right? I mean, you know, that's I mean, it's just cut straight to the nose there.
Well, that's
But yeah.
that's it. That's it. You know, they will decide whether it's something. Um, but also, we're inviting lots of people down that, you know, for whatever reason, can exhibit this year. We'll have good conversations with them. We'll get their views. Yeah. So lots of metrics.
So just to firm up the business model itself,
Sure.
is this is free to attend for anyone, and then the exhibitors are the ones that are funding the whole venture.
Yeah, essentially. And people exhibit, they sponsor, they speak. Sponsored packages normally include a speaking session and an exhibitor stand. So that's the model that we've chosen. Some other Terrapin events are more traditional conference based, so they charge, you know, for the conference to get in. Then it might have maybe a slightly smaller expo, and that's more of your traditional. You know, you're behind a curtain until coffee time and lunchtime. Here, this is, you know, I should say all the conference theatres are open. That gives us a point of difference to other conferences. Silent headsets, silent disco headsets. So people are moving around the floor all the time, right? And having interactions with the exhibitors.
So this raises the next question, which is, how are you innovating the overall convention space? And we've covered this a lot, but I'm sure you also have ideas for how you want to differentiate NoVacancy London from other trade shows, and also really shepherd this exposition industry forward.
Sure. Well, what I would say is, I don't know whether it's 100% innovative, but not everyone does this. You know, we deliberately mix buy side speakers, peer led case studies, and supplier presentations together rather than separating them into completely different experiences. Having said that, we're careful with the ratio, so we like to still keep it in favour of buy side. You know, we don't want just all supplier presentations, but ultimately, it also reflects our decisions we feel are actually made in hospitality. So the two are sort of mixed together. Um, and as I just mentioned, the conference and expos sit together in the same space with open theatres on the show floor. So it creates that hubbub, if you like, if that translates. You know, there's always I think the younger generation will call it a vibe. I don't know if my kids will allow me to say vibe, but that's essentially what it is on the show floor. There's always something going on. Um, but you know, why do people come to events these days? You know, during the pandemic, Zoom, other delivery mechanisms came into force. People can consume content now wherever they want on demand. So that not only do they come to content, they also come for the networking. They come to meet their people in the industry. So we also curate the networking opportunities quite deliberately, whether through a networking zone or the use through the app, which is pretty gold standard. There's also arrange meetings should they want it as well. We've got the Gain VIP evening, which is happening adjacent in another area of Excel. Um, And so that's also why people come, and it's carefully curated. That's not to say that serendipity, you don't want to curate an experience to death. You also want to allow a bit of serendipity, people bumping into each other. Yeah, we all do at events, and that's actually sometimes where the magic happens, where deals happen, where relationships are formed. So I think, carefully curated networking, the combination of the expo floor with the conference theatres being open, and then the mixture of buy side and supply led presentations, we find that works.
Yeah, that word serendipity really strikes a bell with me because there's always the beauty of the conferences. You have these you're bouncing around, and then something can magical can happen out of just having an offhand conversation.
Coming back to what I've done to launch the event and going to all these different events, mostly I've turned up by myself. I didn't know anyone.
Yeah,
But in a funny way, as I tell other people, that forces you into conversations, right? Sometimes if we go to events with 3 or 4 of us and we all know each other, we just end up standing in a corner together. See, because it's safety in numbers. When you don't know, you got to get out there and actually speak to people, and then people introduce you to someone else and someone else, and so on and so forth. So I think that happens at trade shows. I think now if people are going to go out of the office, that's what they want. Um, Content's important, but it's not the only thing that gets people to these events, because content can be found elsewhere.
yeah, and I also like the even earlier point about how you have the speakers on the trade show floor, and these big convention centers. You have to find the room where the speaker's at, and that takes 15 minutes. And it's, oh, is it
Yeah.
in room 131A or 132C? Oh, I'm on the wrong floor. Forget it. Let's just go grab a
Well,
drink.
and that also doesn't help the suppliers, right? And in our case, the suppliers, as we said, are paying to put on the event essentially. So if you're locking your speakers and your delegates away somewhere else, what are your suppliers doing? We've all seen it. They're just talking to each other, which, okay, that's fine. They build partnerships with that as well. Um, but it's not ideal. I think you want the ecosystem mixing together throughout the conference and the exhibition together at the same time, as opposed to just a forced interaction at lunchtime over the buffet cart, where, if we're honest, the delegates at that point just want to eat.
Or if they even have a buffet cart, right?
Yeah,
We were talking about other events before we started
sure.
recording, and we were talking about ones where the food scene, it was basically a food swamp, and they were just overcharging for garbage, right? And in those cases, you're forcing people off site to get a real bite.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're taking them away from the event. I think, the
Yeah.
beauty of a free to enter trade show is that we're democratizing that, right? So people can come. We're not, people don't have to worry about the budgets in that regard, or they can travel a bit further because there's no entry point. Having said that, we're laser focused on who we're inviting. So yeah, I think that's why we feel that this sort of trade show model works. And coming back to your earlier point, it allows you to get scale relatively quickly. Um, and yeah, that's what we hope to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, the overall point that I guess we're getting at here is the actual design of the exposition is so important for creating that scene that draws people back, that gets people excited, and ultimately creates a show that lasts due to, call it, rebooking ratio or whichever other KPI you want to use. And it all comes back to that design of bringing people together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, we're very good, and other organizers are, at making sure that we use the tools available to get our speakers, our visitors, our sponsors to invite their networks to the event, right? And I'm very honest with that. It's not about you're paying us to do it. It's in your interest to do it your own marketing as well. And it's never been easier with all the social media that are available. Um, and it's great because, one person would invite another person who invites another person who invites another person. That's how you sort of build that community spirit. And I think most people accept that. And I've seen that already. Lots of people doing their own promotion around the event. We know in the tech space specifically, I'm sure you'll agree, and I've learned this over the last year of going to events. A lot of them do their own satellite events. either in the evening or the day before, or whatever. So, I think they're well versed in maximizing the opportunities.
Well, truly, been a masterclass discussing how to launch a new event and a lot of the focus that you're putting towards launching it and the design of it. What's next for No Vacancy London after the launch year? And if there's anything else you want to touch on, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's coming back to, let's see what we've got essentially after the first event, right?
Yeah.
Let's take the feedback. Let's see who attended. Let's take any constructive feedback and learnings. And ultimately, as I said, for us, it's about building out those audience sets, independent hotels, chain brands, holiday parks, hostels, service departments, student accommodation, the other supplier categories that I mentioned, um, and getting to a point in 2, 3, 4 years time when we've got 15, 20,000 visitors, 300, 400 exhibitors. That's the direction of travel. Um, that's yeah, it's a dream, but I think it can be done.
Yeah.
I think it can be done. A lot of hard work, but once you get that momentum, as I explained to the team, you're almost like you get that ball to the top of the hill and in year one, or you're getting near, and then it's drops over the other side, and almost takes, because then people start approaching you with opportunities, right? It's that law of attraction. People want to be associated with something that's successful, and then in a funny way, it's like you're almost like, well, let's decide. With there's always so much you can do. But yeah, if you're talking to me in 3 or 4 years' time, hopefully we've got an event where we've got 15,000 attendees, 300 exhibitors, and it's working for the communities that attend.
I mean, in 3, 4 years, we're just going to have robots, right? Robots with our digital avatar attending, and we'll just be sitting back watching Netflix all day, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think I think there's a lot of talk in the exhibition community that, in a funny way, in with the rise of AI, what's become ever more important? Face to face, because it's the only way to genuinely prove that that conversation is happening in real time. So we think the trade show industry is going to be in rude health and even in more demand, because we spoke about serendipity. You can't replicate that on AI. There's so much sort of fake news that, getting those conversations in person are going to be ever more important.
That's a timeless lesson unto itself. Is uh, a close friend of mine says, in the world of AI, humans are the new luxury.
Yeah, it's true.
So, and
It's
that
true.
comes down, and I'm as optimistic as you are about the future of trade shows. It's really that chance to bring people together for that genuine connection.
Absolutely. As human beings, we like to have that connection. It's what we thrive on, and I think, yeah, I think that's going to be the way forward in the future.
Yeah. Dan, it's been a pleasure to talk and to learn about just the ins and outs of what you're dealing with and what the challenges you've overcome. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for inviting me, and hopefully, I look forward to seeing you and the rest of the Gain advisors and other people in your community at the show in London.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Gain Momentum podcast. To stay up to date, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Gain Advisors, head to gainadvisors.com.